You're watching Capital City Sunday.
Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump highlighted their proposed plans for the economy on the campaign trail this week. Harris using her closely watched economic speech on Wednesday to cast Trump as being on the side of billionaires. Joining me on the show this morning is Jaime Harrison, Democratic National Committee Chair. Jaime, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Vice President Harris laid out her plan for the economy. The vice president did take some risk. Her economic message had a mix of progressive and moderate ideas like cutting red tape and increasing small business startup tax deductions and also raising corporate taxes. What do you think about the vice president's plan, and has she communicated that effectively to voters?
I think she has. I think she has laid out a plan that the American people are really excited about it. This is an opportunity economy which will allow all of us to flourish. And one of the pillars of that economy is making sure that we lower costs and we put more money in people's pockets.
Jaime, when you talk about drawing a contrast, former President Donald Trump has continued to lead Harris among national polling on the issues of the economy and inflation. Do you think that this plan will have the intended impact that you hope to see ahead of November?
Well, what we have seen is from the polls that when the VP got in, there was a double-digit lead that Trump had on those issues. And that lead has been shrinking as people have learned more and more about the things that she wants to do for the economy. And I believe by the time we are done with this campaign, she will be in the lead because her policies are thoughtful. They're deliberate. You know, when talking about the issue of child care, you know, Donald Trump's solution to that, he said child care will be child care. And then he started talking about tariffs. That has nothing to do with child care. Anybody who's a parent or have kids or grandkids know that the cost of child care is really, really high, particularly to get quality child care. And the vice president knows this from our conversations, working with parents and her nieces and nephews. She understands that the cost of child care is expensive, and she has a plan in order to address that. And so you need somebody who understands what working people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, who has a finger on the pulse of those folks, and the vice president has that.
And staying on the conversation of national polling, Vice President Harris leads former President Donald Trump by about 76% to 12% among black voters. Harris leads Trump by about 13% among Hispanic and Latino voters, but she still trails Biden's 2020 numbers for these particular coalitions of voters, Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Barack Obama in 2012. With the margin of victory so close for swing states like Wisconsin, is there a focus for the campaign to improve those numbers?
And listen, her numbers are only going to go up from this point forward. Remember, she's only been in the race for a few months now, compared to Donald Trump, who is well known and well established. His numbers are baked in. Her ceiling is much, much more higher than Donald Trump. And we see right now in those polls that her favorability ratings are dwarfing Trump's at this point. He's still in the negative in terms of favorability, but she's in the positive. And so overall, the numbers are where we want them to be, and our trajectory is only high from this point forward. So we feel good about it. I mean, you can also look at the numbers and see that for the first time, she's been, I think, of my lifetime, the only Democrat that I've seen with seniors actually performing better than a Republican. And it's because she's right on these issues that are so important to the American people.
The vice president was in Wisconsin last week. Former President Donald Trump was here yesterday. National polling shows a close race in Wisconsin, a critical battleground state. How are Democrats working to win over those still undecided and independent voters?
Well, when we look at our footprint in Wisconsin, we have 50 offices across 43 counties in every corner of the state. We have more than 250 full-time staff. You know, since the vice president became our nominee, we have gotten 16,000 volunteers to complete their first shift with Democrats in Wisconsin. So we have the infrastructure on the ground, making the calls, knocking on the doors, communicating with voters. And that's what's really, really important, particularly in a close race. I don't think the Republicans and Donald Trump have that type of footprint on the ground there in Wisconsin, but we do, because we're not taking any voter for granted.
Jaime, last week in an interview with Wisconsin Public Radio, Vice President Harris said she would, quote, eliminate the Senate's filibuster rule in order to pass a bill codifying abortion rights. Doing so would lower the threshold from 60 votes to a simple majority of 51 to advance the legislation. Do you agree with the Vice President?
Well, I think the Vice President was very clear that she thinks that our best course of action is to eliminate the filibuster in order to reinstate the protections of Roe versus Wade. Just a few days ago at a rally in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump claimed that the issue of reproductive freedom and abortion no longer pertains in the country, even as we're learning about women who are dying under Trump abortion bans, women that are being prosecuted. I just tweeted out the other day about a young woman, a college junior in my hometown of Orangeburg, South Carolina, who was prosecuted when she had a miscarriage. That's not who we are as a nation. And we don't want women to be fearful about giving birth and about having their own reproductive health and freedoms and be worried about being prosecuted because of decisions made. And so that's the America that Donald Trump has created. And that America has to end. We have to go back to how things were doing under Roe. And that's why the Vice President is very, very strong here. And she thinks that our best course of action is to eliminate the filibuster in order to reinstate the protections of Roe versus Wade.
Jaime, that decision has cost her the endorsement of West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. We also see another Senate Democrat, Jon Tester, who is up for re-election in Montana, refusing to endorse Harris. Is the party concerned that not having the backing of some of these Democratic senators could impact her support in certain states needed to carry her over in November?
You know, the most important endorsement is that of the American people. And that decision has garnered her support of so many women across this country who want the freedom to control their own health care, to control their own bodies. Men control their own bodies. Why can't women control their own bodies? And so that's who the Vice President is speaking to, is to the women and those of us who are allied to women who believe that women should have complete control over their reproductive freedom and their reproductive choices. That's the most important thing to us at this point in time.
Jaime Harrison, Democratic National Committee Chair. Jaime, thank you again for joining us this morning.